Hello everyone, welcome to Cloud Pharaohs. In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to set up CICD for Azure Data Factory using the GitHub Actions. For this demo, we will need three resources, two Azure Data Factory instances, one for dev and one for test, and one GitHub repository to connect to our dev data factory. Before we head over to the Azure portal for demo, let's take a quick look at the new CI/CD workflow. Here it is. So this is the new CI/CD flow. Right now, a lot of us are already using this probably. Um, but anyway, so every developer creates a feature branch in Azure Data Factory dev instance. They work on the features, pipelines, whatever functionality they're developing. And once done, they create a pull request to merge the changes in main branch. And as soon as the merge in main is done, without having to publish it to the ADF publish branch, which is the default publish branch. If you're using Azure DevOps, you're probably using that method as well. But in this method, we're not relying on that button to publish the changes. As soon as your changes are merged in the main branch, we will run a GitHub workflow which will create a build using the npm package of ADF utilities. Once the build is ready, it will create a release and push that release to our ADF test environment. So essentially our code from ADF dev is moving to ADF test as soon as the code is merged in the main branch. For this demo, we are not covering QA to prod or an approval step from QA to prod. We are focusing on the setup of GitHub Actions for moving our code from dev to ADF test. All right, let's now go to the Azure portal then. Let's create two data factories. I will create two separate resource groups as well. Resource group, and I'm gonna just say ADF here. I'm gonna create this in UK South. And say git configure git later. We'll configure this right after this step. Okay, so this is getting created. In the meantime, let's create another data factory for our test environment. So let's just type here resource group test. Here as well, this is a ADF for test. Yeah, this is the name of our test instance. And that's it. Okay, so in the meantime, this also gets created. Let's head over to GitHub. I am creating a GitHub repo. I'm gonna name this to ADF GitHub CICD repo, make it private, add a README file, done. So let's see our data factories are ready. Yes, so we have ADF dev in rgdev and ADF test in rgtest. Okay, let's open the ADF dev and configure the Git repo. Yep. Okay, let's go to manage, Git configuration, and say configure, and select GitHub here. Repository owner, so owner is my name, so this is your organization name, or if it's a personal GitHub repo, so this should be your um, this name. So that's it. Next, and then select the repo. If the connection is successful, you're gonna see your repo here. This is fine. Main branch, ADF publish, root. So you may want to use a root folder for your setup, but I generally don't use root folder, so I'm going to leave it blank. Apply. This might take a second. Um, okay, okay. So it says repo connected. Let's go to the data factory author section and let's create a new pipeline. I'm creating a new pipeline right in the main branch itself. I just want to test the connection right now. I'm not following the overall, feature branch and then pushing to main branch stuff. So I'm just creating a dummy pipeline with wait. Let's say save. So it tries to save in the Git repo. Yeah, so it's saved in the Git repo. Let's look at if the updates have come in. Yes, so the connection is successful. So this is out of the way. Now our dev is connected with our Git. So we're good until here. Now the next thing is to create the managed identity to provide permissions to GitHub, basically to log into Azure and deploy our resources. Once we have the managed identity created, we will assign the data factory contributor role to that managed identity at the target ADF resource group level. So let's go ahead and do that. I'll show you while I'm doing this. Managed identities, create. Okay. So let's select the test resource group that we used for our test data factory. It doesn't really matter which resource group you use to create the managed identity. Managed identity should have the um, right level of access at the right place. But anyway, I'm creating this under the same RG test UK South CICD, placing this as well in UK South. And I'm going to name this user assigned managed identity underscore GitHub so that I know this was created for GitHub. Yep, let's create. Okay, this is getting created, successful. Now let's go to the resource group of test data factory to provide this guy, this managed identity, the right level of access to deploy our code to test data factory. So go to the resource group, go to IAM and role assignment. Give it a data factory contributor. Give it to managed identity and select the member. So we want user assigned. There's only one identity that I have, which is user assigned. So I'm gonna select this and done. done. So, okay, let's check once again. Yeah, so this identity now has data factory contributor rights on this resource, which is a resource group itself. So we are good. Now our managed identity is created. Um, Now let's go back to our managed identity. Go to federated credentials and add credentials. Now the credentials are created, but now we need to add why we need this, right? And what it should be allowed to do. So select this one, GitHub Actions deploying Azure resources. And here we need to provide the details of our GitHub repo, which is organization name is this. Okay, luckily I have it. Manish Narang, yes. CICD repo, yes. Okay, so now the repo is fine. Entity, select branch and say main and give any name here. Add. Done. Let's go back to overview. We need a couple of things to configure as secrets in the GitHub site now. So we need the subscription ID. You can copy the subscription ID here and copy the client ID. I am copying this to a notepad and client ID. Yeah, good stuff. And then we will also need tenant ID to configure in the GitHub secrets. So to get your tenant ID, you can go to, it should be in AD. Yeah. So in AD, you can get your tenant ID as well. I'm gonna copy this somewhere. Yeah. Okay. So we have the setup on this side, on the ADF side. Now let's do the setup on GitHub side. So let's go to settings, go to secrets and variables and for actions. So for actions, we will create the three items that we copied. So we'll use the exact same names that I'm going to use here. Azure tenant ID, new, Azure client ID, new, and subscription ID. Now we are heading towards setting the actions in GitHub. But before we do that, we need just one more file in our repo um, to get the dependencies and everything all set. Just give me 1 second. Yeah. So this should be stored in the repo as package.json. I'm gonna copy this, create new file. I know I'm doing it directly in branch, but it's fine. So let's give it a name, build and package.json. Make sure that it is package.json. Let's check the name once again. Package.json. Let me copy this anyway. Sometimes. Yeah. And commit. The next thing we need to do is to create the action and set up a workflow yourself. Here I'm going to paste the npm package commands. I have written this in my VS Code and I'm just pasting it here, and I'll review this with you what these commands mean. So, okay, let's quickly walk through. So this says that on the push action on main branch, this is going to run. The main elements are, first job is build job, right? In the build job, basically it will set up the Git runner environment, Ubuntu, and then installation of the Node.js. Make sure the version is 18.x. Some scripts even on Microsoft websites do not reflect this correctly, so make sure that it is correct. And then so this command basically install your dependencies that we mentioned in the previous step in the package.json file. So make sure that this path is pointing to your correct folder. Next thing is validate and export the artifact. So when you validate, make sure that you have your subscription pasted here. I'll put the parameter names here, what you need to change for your case. So subscription ID, and then you will change the resource group and the data factory name at the end. It will appear. Let me scroll right. Yeah, you see the data factory name, and this is the same command, just the change is export, rest remains the same. And so this command basically gives us the export of the artifact which is generated from the dev environment. You could even download it and explore this a little bit. And the next thing is upload artifact. So we're uploading the artifact back for the next step. And this one, you see here the commands for download and upload artifact. Make sure these are v4. This is this has been deprecated just this month. Starting February 2025, v3 will not work. So change this. Rest is, I think, self-explanatory. This is logging to the Azure, and then this step is deploying to the test data factory. This also remains standard. I haven't really seen these changing. And the last, this one I have commented myself because I'm not sending any parameters, any custom parameters as such, uh, for my case. So let's just commit the change and see what happens next. Yep, change is committed. Now after the commit, as we are committing the change directly in main branch, so ideally the action should have started. Yes, so the action has started. It's been more than a minute. I'm thinking let's see what it is doing in the meantime. So you see the two steps, build step is completed already, and this is the artifact that it has created. You could download this and look at the contents also. um, and release step is going on. Let's see if everything is fine. Yeah, so login to Azure module has completed already and should be done quickly. This is the last step and done. Okay, let's go back. Yes. So now our test data factory has the same pipeline that we had in dev. Now, if we want to create another pipeline or another change, as soon as we will save this in the main branch, it will automatically kick off the deployment process. But now let's follow the proper process. So ideally, it should happen like feature, let's say feature one. Okay, I will create again a simple without any parameters, a pipeline, say pipeline 2, and save it, validate. Okay, and then I'm going to create a pull request from this feature to main branch, create pull request. Ideally, you type something meaningful here, it goes to your reviewer, and then you create a pull request. Some senior data engineer or manager, they approve the pull request and merge it. So the code gets merged. Now this is merged, we can now delete this branch, feature branch. So I'm deleting this right away. Yes, go to main. Yeah, so main now has two pipelines. So this is a commit to main, so it should ideally have kicked off our GitHub action as well. Let's see. Yes, so you see this action has started. This will do exactly the same stuff that it already did. Like it'll create a pipeline 2. I'm gonna pause this video again. Okay, this is now completed. So let's go and see what's happening here. Oh, this is dev, this is test. Let's refresh. Yep, so we have two pipelines. Of course, in the real life, I mean, you won't have pipelines uh, this simple. You'll have pipelines with a lot of data sources, variety of linked services where you would be using, Azure Key Vault for uh, some data sources. You might be using managed identities and variety of ways to access those data sources. So in the future videos, we will cover all those scenarios, how to use pipeline variables, custom parameters, global parameters, and variety of other scenarios, and possibly the approval stage as well, to mimic the deployment from test to prod, and things like that. So stay tuned, consider subscribing if you have not done so, and I will add the link to the YAML file and package.json in the description if YouTube allows me, or maybe in the comment section. Until then, thank you. Bye bye. Take care.